I don't just talk about other people's stuff, I also make my own. Books in particular. To date, I have 4 books you can check out on Amazon. Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and the short story collection Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Hop on down to the description for Amazon links to all 4 books. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Omni viewer, and I need to make a small retraction before we begin.
The genesis of this mini-series exploring tokusatsu films came from a list of questions I got tagged to answer. As part of that, I had to name my favorite non-kaiju toku film produced by Toho.
I found myself struggling to come up with an answer. Not because I hadn't seen any such films, but because my top choices could be seen as kaiju films from a certain point of view.
My initial choices would have been either The Mysterians or Latitude Zero, but the latter has a kaiju show up at the end and the former has Mogera. Yes, I know Mogera is technically a mech, but there are plenty of mechs who are counted as kaiju, be they autonomous robots like Mechagodzilla, piloted vessels like Mechagodzilla, or something in between like Mechagodzilla.
Ergo, I sifted through my options until I finally landed on one that I knew for certain had no kaiju in it. A film entitled Battle in Outer Space. I had remembered liking it the first time I saw it, but when I answered that question, I hadn't actually seen it in a very long time. Well, I rewatched it for this set of videos, and I would like to withdraw that answer. While the film isn't a disaster, it's not nearly as good as I remember.
So what's the plot? It's the not-too-distant future of 1965, and inexplicable acts of destruction have occurred all over the world. It quickly becomes apparent that these are not weather phenomenon or acts of terrestrial terrorism. Rather, these are the first blows dealt by the invaders from the planet Natal, who are going to invade the Earth because that's what aliens do. Rather than just sit on their duffs and wait for the invasion to begin, humanity decides to be proactive. The Natal have a base on the moon from which their invasion will be launched, so humanity sends a strike force up for a surprise counterattack. Or at least, it would be a surprise if not for the Natal having a brainwashed spy on the inside.
So what can I say about the film that's good? Well, the soundtrack is great, as you would expect from an Akira Ifukube score. And the special effects are also mostly impressive. I say mostly because there are a few caveats.
First of all, some of what we see is clearly recycled from the Mysterians, most notably the JSS-3 space station and the flying saucers. Most of the stuff we see on display is new, but the reused designs prevent the film from having a totally original aesthetic. There are also effects that simply don't work, like the tiny dolls jostling around in the ATVs, or the stars visible through this chair. Also, check out this indentation in the curvature of the Earth.
Don't you just hate it when you leave your planet in the parking lot and when you get back from the store there's a dent in it?
Aside from that though, there really is some great model work here. Eiji Tsuburaya and his team put together an impressive array of ships, devices, and cityscapes that, even with the recycled models, are still great to look at, and aside from those few issues, still look good today.
I also like the way the Natal are handled in the film. Up to a point.
For most of the movie, we don't see the Natal. We see their technology and we hear their voices, but we don't actually see them. For 99% of the film, they are a faceless enemy, more mysterious than the aliens with the word mystery in their name, and that really adds to their menace. You cannot really define what the Natal are, and that unknown factor combined with their talent for mind control makes them more intriguing than your average alien invaders.
Unfortunately, the remaining 1% of the film where they do appear kills that mystique.
We get one scene in which we see a group of Natal, and they turn out to be short and not very menacing. The most they do is make an annoying sound while pestering this one lady astronaut, then this dude astronaut shows up, easily rescues her, and kills the whole crowd with one shot from his ray gun. A certain degree of mystery is still maintained since they're wearing spacesuits that hint at their true appearance without giving too much away, but the oversized helmets make them look kinda goofy.
There's concept art of these guys that would have looked much cooler, but in the end I'd rather the Natal had remained completely unseen. And for most of the film they are, so I will give them credit for handling that part well. Unfortunately, that's where the positive stuff ends. I'm afraid the flaws are severe in this one. For example, did you notice that I never named any of the characters in the plot synopsis? That's because they're not very noteworthy.
Despite the presence of a large international ensemble, not much is done to make us really care about anyone we see. The most interesting one of the bunch is the guy who gets brainwashed by the Natal, but he's only interesting because he gets brainwashed, which affects the plot, but doesn't really endear him as a character. Literally any of these people could have been brainwashed and the movie would barely change.
Ironically, that makes humanity faceless in a different way from the Natal, since despite being clearly visible, they're indistinguishable from each other. Couldn't that have been on purpose? I wish I could say that, Snazzy. Heck, I'd love to tell you guys that Battle in Outer Space is actually a very deep film beneath its flashy exterior, but I would be lying if I did that.
In stark contrast to the Mysterians, Battle in Outer Space doesn't really have much going on beneath the surface. Oh sure, it loudly proclaims a call for globalism as all nations unite against an alien threat, makes you wonder if Ronald Reagan saw this movie, but that's so obviously stated that to call it subtext is to call an overcoat underwear. Even that message, though, doesn't carry much weight when there are no memorable characters to root for. I guess that makes this movie like Independence Day if it didn't have such a colorful cast to win us over.
In the end, that makes Battle in Outer Space an example of hollow spectacle.
It has plenty of flash, but the substance is lacking in the extreme. In fact, even the spectacle is somewhat lacking.
You may have noticed that I said the models mostly look good, but I didn't say that any of the scenes they appear in are good. That's because as action scenes go, they're kinda boring.
The big battle on the moon mostly consists of firing lasers from two static locations until one side explodes more than the other, which takes far too long to happen, and the climactic battle has a lot of repeated footage and awkward edits. It just feels generally sloppy compared to what Toho was capable of back then.
It's unfortunate, really, because I remember liking Battle in Outer Space the first time I saw it.
My discernment of what makes good cinema has changed since then, I admit, but the fact remains that I'm just not impressed anymore.
I suppose it's worth checking out for the score and the model work, but as far as plot goes, don't feel too bad if you missed this one. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off. Well, here's hoping the next film turns out better. It's usually counted as a kaiju film, but I'm gonna cover it anyway.
Congratulations, you reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, you might want to consider supporting us on Patreon. Of course, the other way to support us is to go to Amazon and check out our books, Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Also check the description for links to DeviantArt and other platforms we operate. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.